Hey guys, Robbie K here, coming at you with another Robbie's Movie Reviews. Today we are going to start with a double, and our first one, before I head into my second one, is on the sequel, Unbroken, Path to Redemption. Now, if you haven't seen the first movie, Unbroken is essentially the tale during World War II, where an American and his friends were essentially shot down on a plane, drifting out into sea, for about 47 days, only to be picked up by Japanese Axis powers, who then proceeded to make the main character go through a life of torture and torment in a prisoner of war camp, and the unbelievable power of faith to get him through it. While I never thought that we were going to see the second part of the story, lo and behold, this weekend, number 2 came out, trying to pick up the pieces of where the tale left off in hopes of kind of crafting the character even further to understand his travel and faith. What's the verdict with it? Well, yours truly is here to kind of give you the update as we hit another review with yours truly. Now, when it comes to kind of where our first part is for Phase 1, we'll talk about the quick sum up. And essentially, Unbroken 2 is very much like its first predecessor. All about a path of redemption, faith, and the trials of trying to find God. And effectively does a nice job of representing the spiritual belief that this series has been famous for. If you're a fan of kind of like movies like, what was it, I Can Only Imagine, God's Not Dead, things like that, it's going to have a very similar punch and feel to you to get you situated and set up for another kind of test of faith movie. It's poetic, it is very realistic, it has got very emotional power behind it, with a fantastic acting to bring it up. Outside of that, essentially you're going to have it a very kind of linear story told. No twists, no turns, as you kind of get the inspirational means. If you're not a fan of these films, you're not going to enjoy this one outside of maybe if you're historical context, as this one kind of forgoes the historic prowess that the first one had for more of that religious faith. It feels a little bit like a Hallmark movie or kind of a couple of other things, and with it, you know, that's okay if you really like those kinds of movies, but don't expect a lot of other theatrical components to really bring this one to light for most of the audience members. So again, it's that select audience group that's probably going to enjoy this the most and want to go see it in films. Otherwise, outside of not being the flashiest movie to hit, it does its job and was a-okay for me. So, you know, kudos to them for making a fun movie. But otherwise, if you're not really looking for this stuff or prefer to wait for it to kind of experience in your own home, then, you know, hang it. Hold out and wait for wait out for this movie at your own home theater experience instead of the actual movie theater. Now, if you're new to this one, Phase 1 is kind of here. We wrap up with essentially what the score is. And yours truly gives this movie for kind of its biography, drama, and spiritualness. I'll give it a 7, maybe a 7.5. In terms of movie overall, we're looking at around the 5.5, 6 mark for it, just because of missing some other components that would make it a little bit more audience-friendly. But outside of that, if you're done with Phase 1 and you just prefer the quick and dirty, we've already gone through it. But if you're looking for the details, stick around, and we'll be happy to do the part 2 with me. So for those sticking around, I always like to do likes and dislikes of it. When we start with the likes, the first thing is the acting, which is probably my favorite component, or maybe my second favorite component. The cast does a great job with the main character, once again reprising his role and doing a fantastic job representing kind of the torment and struggle that I'm sure this guy was going through. PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is a very hard disease for veterans to kind of face. Brings about it with nightmares and all sorts of disarray that often affects life to the point, and they captured it perfectly. His suffering, his reactions, his ability to balance without going overboard, all of it was beautifully done and in a manner that was very well received. I give them kudos, I give them props, and I myself just really enjoyed his portrayal. His wife, who plays a very big role in this as well, does another fine job of doing a nice balance of someone who's concerned and caring, but also human. So fantastic portrayals between those two, and a fantastic ability to make this entire cast come to life for me, and just do a hell of a job of portraying that spiritual belief, that love and devotion of each other, and not terribly crossing into the cheesy aspect we sometimes see. In addition to that, all the secondary characters did great. Always love watching his brother, and for the quick tidbits of the flashback of the Japanese guy, did a great job, though he's just not as involved as the original one. So where else do we go with this? Well, in regards to it, I gotta give them props for kind of the message of faith. There are a few in these series that are a little bit beat you over the head with the spiritual message and religion factor, so while, those movies are well appreciated in terms of it, they're a little too hokey and over the top. This one, though, maintained that sense of balance and did a nice job integrating the test of faith without it becoming kind of a preachful gospel. Of course, there are some exceptions to that component, but for the most part, a fine balance of character portrayal with meeting the message of God. And in regards to kind of anything else, I'd have to say I did enjoy kind of looking at all dynamics of the movie, or the character's life, and not just one fold. It did a really nice job of kind of portraying the build-up, the downfall, and with it making a fantastic portrayal of kind of how the journey to rock bottom happened. Now, in regards to something else, I gotta say that I'm a big fan of appreciating the musical score that goes into making a movie, primarily in the fact that the movie did a beautiful job integrating very powerful instrumental works into scenes and maximizing the emotion they were trying to go through. This is definitely true at one of the final scenes where just everything kind of comes together. So kudos to the video and sound editing for really adding the extra oomph behind it. And I gotta give it props that the movie, for the most part, didn't feel too long and dragged out. A little slow at times, but otherwise a fine pace to get things going. And outside of that, the movie is just very, very much going to be cut and dry what it is. So those are the likes. In terms of the dislikes, again, you have to kind of be a little more limited in your scope to really enjoy this movie. And if you are one of those big-time kind of church-related movies and test of faith movies, this movie is definitely for you. But its limitation is that it doesn't, not that every movie appeals to everyone, but it's a little more fine and focused than some of the other films that we've seen. It's not so much an audience component, and therefore it's lacking some of the things, such as some special effects components, lacking a bit more of the movie magic and twist with it, and I guess I would say even more so, I guess I wanted to see a little more into kind of the redemption pathway as opposed to just the fall pathway, because that disbalance, which is a dislike, is it's a little more about the fall and build-up of it, and not so much of kind of seeing what happened after the kind of the redemption factor fit in. So sadly, that component is added. It's a little more of a drier movie in terms of that. The humor is limited, so don't expect to be laughing a lot with this unless you enjoy kind of the drier wit. But otherwise, it's also kind of lacking the fact of some of the pacing is off. There are parts where the editing probably could have taken it out, or more so maybe I should say adding some things that the trailers did not already light up. So if you've seen a lot of trailers, chances are you've seen a good chunk of this movie. So it's one of those movies that suffers kind of movie trailer syndrome. So if you haven't been watching the trailers, then you're alright. But otherwise, you've probably seen a good chunk of it. Lo and behold, though, the movie does what it needs to do as we get to the verdict of it. It's a fine movie. It's a cut and dry, give you exactly what you expected from the trailer. And it's very emotionally pleasing as long as you've got the religious factor and opening of your heart. In terms of entertainment value, though, this isn't a movie that's going to blow your mind or have you on the edge of your seat in terms of surprises, slam dunks, and the likes. But at the same time, that's okay. We occasionally need that movie. It just didn't need to be in the theater. So unless you're looking for kind of the religious movie of the season to hit you, probably want to stay out at home for this one because it's just not going to be a lot of theater-worthy quality. But otherwise, if you're looking for a good message, a strong delivery, and a really good portrayal of telling a story and teaching the Word of Christ, this movie is definitely for you. And give it a check out wherever you decide to look for it. Otherwise, wait for this one to hit home. So until then, you'll hear from me very soon. But I got to get going to my next one for White Boy Rick, which will be coming soon. Have a good one, guys. Talk to you later.